It is 6 o'clock, and I call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Commerce City Council to order. For our invocation this evening, I would ask that we observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Ms. Thompson, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Please rise.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4 is the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda any council person wishes to remove? If not, is there a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 5 is presentation to City Council by members of the public according to the rules listed in the agenda. I have no cards before me. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the council? If not, we'll move on to item 6, which is a proclamation. And we have some Rotarians here with us. What I will do is read the proclamation from here, and then I will ask the council to go down in front of the podium with me and join you all who are here as Rotarians, and we'll get a picture or two. Proclamation. Be it known to all citizens of the City of Commerce, Texas. Whereas Rotary International is a worldwide service organization founded in Chicago in 1905 and currently exceeds 1.2 million men and women working as volunteers in more than 35,000 clubs in over 300 countries across the globe. And whereas the Commerce Rotary Club was organized on October 18, 1921, and has served the commerce community and its citizens, providing scholarships and opportunities to study abroad to local high school and college students. And whereas the Rotary motto, service above self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, encourage high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace in the world. And whereas in 1979, Rotary International led the worldwide effort to eradicate polio in the 122 nations where it existed. Today, polio remains endemic only in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And whereas the Commerce Rotary Club has supported literacy programs offered by the Commerce Public Library, programs offered by the Northeast Texas Children's Museum, and they have also provided financial and other support to numerous charitable and service organizations and needy individuals throughout our community. Now, therefore, I, Wyman Williams, Mayor of the City of Commerce, Texas, do hereby proclaim January 20, 2022 as Rotary Day in the City of Commerce. I urge all citizens to recognize the Rotary Club for the important service it provides to our community throughout the nation and around the world. You may applaud. Let's go down there. Item 7, discussion and possible action on a contract for election services between the Hunt County Elections Administration Office and the City of Commerce for the May 7, 2022 general election for the purpose of electing a mayor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You have before you a contract with Hunt County Elections Administration Office between us and the City of Commerce and the Elections Administration Office. This is a contract that essentially allows for shared resources for our election. So if you all recall, a few months back, you voted to approve the county's voting equipment. So we utilize their voting equipment, some of their staff, they print ballots for us. So this contract allows for that shared services between the City of Commerce and the county so that we don't take on the cost of all of the voting equipment, all of the staff, all of the ballot printing. They have a lot more experience doing that anyways. So this contract allows for that. You all have approved this contract essentially in May of every year. May 7th of 2022 will be our uniform election date, consistent with election code. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Is there a motion?
Move that we accept the contract.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 8, discussion and possible action on an ordinance calling the May 7, 2022 election for the purpose of electing a mayor for a 3-year term from May 2022 to May 2025.
Mayor and Council, related to the item you just passed, the contract, this is related to establishing the May 7th, 2022 general election for the City of Commerce. If you all recall, back in 2015, there was a charter revision that staggered the terms to where Place 1 and Place 3 run together 1 year, Place 2 and Place 4 run the next year, and the mayor runs by themselves so that we establish three-year staggered terms. This year, the position of mayor, who runs by place, is up for re-election for 2022 through 2025. This ordinance calls that election to be held on May 7th of 2022 here at City Hall from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Local government, or not local government code, but election code requires that the governing body call the election X amount of time prior to the election, and this ordinance establishes that.
Is there a motion?
Before that, Mayor, if I may, staff has been given a couple of different questions in relation to the May election that we want to try to talk through in order to provide as much information as we can to the questions we've received. One of the questions was regarding what if a sitting city council person decides to run for mayor? I will defer the technicalities to my esteemed colleague to my right, but my minimal understanding is that during the filing period for the May election, if a sitting city council member files to become a candidate for the position of mayor, they have automatically resigned from their seat as city council. However, they continue to serve in that capacity until their replacement is elected. For us, because there's 3-year terms, if there is a vacancy on the city council, it must be with an election, not an appointment. And so should a sitting city council person file for mayor, then we automatically know that we would have to call a special election to fill their seat. And so we've looked through the calendar, and before I hand it over to Charles, the filing period, the filing deadline is February the 18th to file for the position of mayor. But an informal deadline for us is February the 11th. If a sitting city council member chooses to run for mayor, if we could know that prior to February the 11th, we can then call the special election to happen on May 7th at the same time of the general election and only have one election. If we find out after February the 11th then we have to call a subsequent special election on a different day and pay the cost of that election to Hunt County. And so there's some key deadlines that are involved in that. But basically, we would ask to know by February 11th. We can't require, but that helps us align calendars and have one election and one expense rather than multiple elections. Charles, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Howdy. I think you pretty much nailed what's going on here. I would add one thing, though. It's not just filing for office, although that's the bright line that staff really likes. But under the Constitution, it's also if you announce that you're going to run, then that is also considered an automatic resignation under the state constitution. The election to fill a vacancy, say of a sitting member who might decide to run for mayor, is considered a special election. And so it has a little bit different kind of requirements than the election code puts on, and the main requirement is that it take place within 120 days of the time that the announcement is made and whatnot. Because Commerce has gone to 3-year terms for its council members, the state law constitution provision kicks in, and you can only replace people in positions by an election, so the people get to decide on that. So other than that, of course, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them, but I think Howdy basically nailed it.
Does anything change if 2 council members decide to run?
No, it's just then the city would have 2 places to fill in the special election, because each
the
one
same-
who
same
announces
election
and
could do that.
files,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
The difference, I think, would then become potential ballot language changes.
Yeah.
Because how the terms are staggered. If someone from the 1 and 3 session and someone from the 2 and 4 session, then we would have to have 3 ballot initiatives, one to elect the mayor, one to an unexpired term for the 1 or 3, and then the unexpired for the 2 or 4. So you'd have 3 potential
Okay.
ballot initiatives on one ballot.
Okay, my question is that, how long does the if we have an announcement that says that a city council person is going to run, then how long does the person that wants to run for that city council position have to file?
Once we, I may defer to Molly there, but once we call the special election, that starts the calendar, and there would be a filing period associated with that that's
Okay.
separate.
I believe by the election code, we have to allow for a 30-day filing period.
Okay.
Even in a special election.
So
it would
the
be
elections would not be concurrent?
No, the elections would be concurrent, the filing periods would not be. Because it's a special election, there's a shorter calendar to pull
Okay,
it off.
okay, because that's shorter.
Because whenever I ran for this position the first time to fill an unexpired position, I had a very short time period before the actual election.
Yeah.
I filed, and then within a month, we had an election
Yep.
And the first day to file is when?
today.
For the mayoral election is tomorrow, January
Tomorrow,
19th through
okay.
February 18th.
Very
Tomorrow
good.
morning at 8 a.m.
Very good.
It's the 19th through the 18th.
Okay.
January 19th through February.
Now, where were we voting on 8? What were we doing?
So all we're doing now is
Calling,
You got me lost.
to call the general election. We can't call a special election until there is a legitimate need for it.
Gotcha.
So at this point, all we're doing is calling the general election.
Which is item 8,
Yes.
as it's stated.
Yes.
Is there a motion related to item 8?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 9, discussion and possible action on a resolution of the City of Commerce City Council to approve the purchase of Freightliner 5-6-yard box dump truck from Leadwell and Son Enterprises, Inc. for use by the Commerce Public Works Department, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute any necessary documentation.
Mayor, Council, I'll take this one. When we put the budget together, the City Council approved a budget that included the allocation of funding to acquire a new dump truck. For our purposes, And to clarify for our esteemed attorney, it is not a 5/6 yard dump truck.
What is it?
It is a 5 or 6 yard dump truck. It's one dump truck, but there are sideboards that you can change the configuration. If
You
you
make it
don't,
taller?
if you don't put the sideboards on there, it's a 5 yard dump truck. If you add some boards, it's a 6 yard dump truck. So we're not asking for a 5/6 yard dump truck. It's a 5 or 6 yard dump truck.
I didn't know.
And so
You're asking for a
I
dump.
wasn't the only one.
I didn't know.
we did identify this one through a state purchasing vendor. And so we've got pricing for this product. However, there's not any on the ground right now. So once we submit the purchase order, they start building it. So this one we bid out through several vendors. Okay, and so with the lowest price, this is the vendor that was chosen. But we are also going to be financing this through a local bank, but we can't secure the financing until there's a VIN number. And since the truck hasn't even been built yet, there is no VIN number. So when it's ready, we'll come back to approve the financing of this truck. And so, Jamie, what's the final purchase price on the truck? I don't have it in front of me.
Any questions?
Yes, when will, what's the turnaround on building one?
May?
So it is actually 24 weeks to build one, but they will have the chassis by February or March, which will allow us to have a VIN number by February, March, and lock in a pretty good, I hope, interest rate.
But final delivery should be sometime around this summer? Yeah.
And this will replace our existing dump truck that's a 1993.
What's the plan for that? Auction it?
We could park it at your house and leave it there as a
No.
lawn decoration if
I
you
don't
would
think
like.
my neighbors would not
Oh,
appreciate
okay, all right.
it. Make a great flower pot.
Is there a motion?
5/6 yard.
Yes, that's the one.
Is there a motion related to item 9?
I move that we pass the resolution.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 10, discussion and possible action on a resolution of the City Council of Commerce, of the City of Commerce City Council to approve the purchase of a New Holland tractor with a bush hog boom mower from Nortex Tractors for use by the Commerce Public Works Department, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute any necessary documentation.
Mayor, Council, Howdy Lisenby, City Manager. I'll be taking this one as well, and I will give you the headline first. We are recommending that you deny this resolution or take no action. When we put this into the budget for adoption, we put a budget of approximately $88,000 in the budget, and it requires the purchase of a tractor and then the separate purchase of one of those long arm boom mowers that you can clear right away with. We do not have a piece of equipment like this right now. We've got the opportunity to work with the county from time to time. They have one, and they've been willing to work with us. When we went and got pricing for this, we locked in pricing that was right at and within our budget. And within the past couple of weeks, the vendor called us and said that the cost of the tractor had just gone up by $10,000. And wasn't real crazy about that, but I knew it's a piece of equipment that we needed. So we said, we'll keep moving it forward, but that's the price. We want to lock in that basically $97,000. They said, yes, that's the price. Yesterday, they called us and said the mower has gone up by $10,000. So in 2 weeks, you've had a 25% price increase, and we are not willing to do that. It puts us about $20,000 over our budget, and based on what we feel is questionable cost escalations, we would prefer to wait and see if pricing changes or there's actually some other equipment that we may bring for your approval rather than this tractor and mower combination. It would be a new piece of equipment that gives us new capabilities, but until pricing comes back down, we can continue to work with the county. We're not willing to take a $20,000 hit for this equipment, and so it's staff recommendation to either take no action or to deny the resolution. At your pleasure.
I won't call for a motion, and we move on.
Okay.
Item 11, second reading, discussion and possible action on an ordinance of the City of Commerce, Texas, amending Code of Ordinances of the City by amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 3, Boards and Commissions, Division 3, Beautification Commission, in part by amending Section 281, Created Membership, Section 282, Organization, Section 283, Duties, and providing an effective date.
Mayor, Council, Hallie Lisenby, City Manager. A number of months ago, we started a process by which we are looking at each of our individual boards and commissions, and we began with the Beautification Commission. We'd had a number of issues regarding the ability to call an actual meeting because of vacancies and our inability to achieve a quorum. And so you asked staff to go have some conversations and come back with recommendations. We had the first reading last month, and this is the second reading. Just as a way of reminder, there was a provision that specifically calls that a quorum is 5 members. And so at present, we only have 5 members. And so if we don't have all 5 of them show up, we technically don't have a quorum and we can't conduct business. And so we're asking that the ordinance be changed to just show that a quorum is a majority of the voting members. The second is that the board is consisting of 8 appointments from the city council. We're asking to change that to a 7-member board, 5 to be appointed by the city council, 1 member from the Lewis Strait Garden Club, and 1 member from the Chamber of Commerce, so that we can better collaborate with other entities within the city. And then the final one was just looking at the duties, cleaning up some of the duties and responsibilities that were listed. Primarily, we just removed one of the items that basically told them to clean up the city. This board doesn't really have the authority to take any action, and so we're asking them to encourage citizens and the members to clean up the community, but not giving them the power to actually take action and do things. And so those are the recommended changes, and we welcome your questions.
One question on that, Howdy. 1 member of the Chamber of Commerce, are you talking their executive, their staff 1 member, or the citizens in the community that are members of the Chamber of Commerce? Would they qualify as well, or is it just their staff?
Right now, it's written that the Garden Club and the Chamber may each appoint their representative. We don't clarify. It could be a staff member, it could be a board member. You would think the Chamber would want somebody that's either staff or board. Part of the reason for that is the ordinance calls for the Beautification Commission to make annual awards to the best residential lawn and the best commercial beautification efforts at some annual banquet. Well, that hasn't been done that I'm aware of, and so the Chamber is going to have an annual community banquet. We'd like to collaborate with the Chamber and make this part of the awards that are given at the Chamber banquet. And so the Chamber gives us the ability to bring in businesses to this conversation. The Garden Club gives us access to a different portion of the community. And so we were just trying to better collaborate with stakeholders. But we don't specifically clarify who it is.
So it's not necessarily one of the staff that's there?
It
Okay.
could be, does not have to be.
Okay.
Other questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to pass on the second reading.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, City Manager's Report.
There was no public input, so we will move on to the finance update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we're going to start with your property tax revenue. So as of December 2021, we have reached 38% collections compared to 32% collections at this time last year. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule. We have received a total of $1.29 million in property tax revenue and about $16,000 towards delinquent taxes. As property taxes are due in January, we typically see an additional 40% that are collected just in January. So typically by the end of January, we'll be at about 72 to 75% collections. So we're still right on track for that. Okay. On sales tax, so in January 2022, we are slightly greater than our budgeted numbers. And the variance between our prior year and our current year is actually split between retail and food services, which kind of makes sense seeing as how the majority of vendors are reporting sales tax related to November activity. So, you know, you're going to see your increases from, I would say, what is it? Black
Retail.
Friday sales. Everybody after Thanksgiving, nobody wants to eat at their house anymore. Everybody wants pizza. So we saw food was a big impact, but at the same time, so was retail for that. So we have reached about 39, almost 40% of our budgeted sales tax revenue for the fiscal year so far. Which I think is pretty good.
That's good.
So taking a look at retail, the big spike that you see in January of 2020 is just because we have a timing difference in a large customer who usually pays in February. In 2020, just decided to pay a month early. We're still expecting that payment to be made in February of this fiscal year. Because that's typically in 2019, that's when they paid it. Last year, that's when they paid it. And I have gotten some messages saying that that's when they're paying it this year. So other than that, again, you see an increase in the food services. Retail trade, we're seeing the same trend. We're seeing the same trend of our online sales. It's still increasing month over month. We're seeing it higher than it was from the previous year. January is still higher, still higher. I know that they're probably still in court fighting over the sales tax law that was changed a few years ago. I have not heard anything back on that, on whether or not they're going to change their ruling. We're seeing the benefit of the ruling, which is your sales tax goes to the city, your destination city.
For online purchases.
For online purchases. Goes to the destination city, which has been very beneficial for us. So we're hoping that they don't change their ruling. But of course, every city is being hit differently, right? So.
I think we're a significant contributor.
And then, of course, accommodation and food services. So I kind of dug into this a little bit more. And because we are seeing some new food establishments in Commerce, we're seeing an increase in our food services over the last 3 months. So November, December, and January. These are food services and food companies that have not been on our sales tax radar before, okay? Last year, so when I look at the whole calendar year, not our fiscal year, but our calendar year, there was an increase of 23% from 2020 in this category, and still it was a total increase of 18% from 2019. So even from before COVID, 2021 in our food industry is still seeing, you know, great success, and it seems to be growing. So these new food places that are coming in, even though they may seem small, they're having a large impact for us, which is great, which is wonderful. So that's all I have for sales tax. All right. So we're gonna kind of just jump into your financials. It's a very high-level view of your financials. We're gonna look at only your general fund, which is where the majority of the magic happens, right? That's the majority of our maintenance and operations, and then our public utilities. All the other funds are just kind of cogs in the system, right? Make things work. So what I really want to explain on this visual is on the left side. These are our year-to-date numbers. So I want to show you your year-to-date where we are on year-to-date budget, so you can see where we are in our revenue and our expenses and kind of look at the whole picture. And then where we are quarterly. This is our quarterly budget. So I'm not comparing apples and oranges and whatnot. If you have any questions on specific departments or specific revenues or anything like that, I can hopefully give an answer for you. Some things that I will say, because it can be a little complicated, is that we all know that we have ARP this year, which is the American Rescue Plan, okay? The way that we budgeted was a very simple transfer in from our grant fund, okay? The accounting for it is actually a little bit more difficult, and the way we're doing the actual accounting for it is a decrease in expenses, because I have to show the expenses where I'm getting the revenue, okay? So where you see the police is probably under their budget, it's because I have to decrease for their premium pay, which is at, which was $76,000 for the first quarter. I transfer that out, so I have to decrease that expense and move it over to the grant fund, okay? So where the revenue is probably showing under budget, it's because we're not moving revenue over, we're moving expense out. It has the same bottom line effect, but accounting-wise and audit-wise, it's what we have to do, right? If you have other questions, let me know. Anybody? I'm ready.
I will just insert here and express my gratitude for Jamie, because I know she hates it when I do this publicly. I don't know what reports monthly or financially that the city council was getting prior to me showing up, but I'm used to at least having a monthly or quarterly financial update to the council that shows where our actual expenditures are in relation to budget. Jamie has been the sole finance and accounting person for this community for a while. And so with the addition of our new accountant that y'all allowed us to hire through the budget process, we now have some improved capabilities to produce data and reports. And this is a direct result of the efforts of Jamie and her team, so that you can begin to see monthly where we're at in terms of actual expenditures and related to budget, rather than once or twice a year getting to see into that. We're looking to improve the transparency and the reporting that we do for both you and the community. And Jamie's doing an excellent job, her and her team. And so I want to thank her for that.
Thank you.
So does anybody have any questions departmentally? If not, we can look at public utilities real quick. So on the public utility side, it may look alarming that water production is over budget, but the real reason why it's over budget is because we have a pass-through expense for Upper Trinity and Cooper Lake. And so we've already billed them and we've already expensed it. So it's $348,000 that gets hit in October. And so it just shoots that up and it just throws everything out of whack. We already have the bill for it. We're expecting to get paid for it by February. But if you take that out of the mix, they're actually under budget. The solid waste, we are slightly over what we budgeted for expense, but it is covered on the revenue side, okay? So, and again, it all depends on when we do our budget for solid waste. We try to estimate how many accounts we'll have open and how many students A&M might have that year, not have that year, and how many are on campus and how many aren't. And so it's an art, I guess. Recycling is coming in under budget right now, which is very nice. And so if any questions on public utilities? Is there anything that you guys would like to see on these reports that I can add for you? Got it.
Jimmy,
They're
going
perfect.
back, going back to the general fund.
Yes, ma'am.
Some of those that are over budget, that, let's just say governmental affairs, the library. Is that due to work we have done up front that we budgeted for the whole year, or?
So the library, I can tell you right now, is, we give them the one-time contribution. We used to space it out every month, but because we don't get an invoice from them, it happens that you forget months. So we decided this year that we would just pay them one time up front.
Okay, and then
So
that's going
you'll
to be
see it even out.
throughout the year, okay.
Governmental affairs, we pay insurance, so all of our insurance, we pay it once in October at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
And so, it's a very large purchase, and we have other very large purchases that are made upfront at the beginning of the year within that
So
first
it just
quarter.
skews everything through,
It
okay.
does. The first quarter is always a little difficult. And I try not to do financials before that first quarter because we're doing so many accruals for the prior fiscal year and backdating and trying to true up so many things. It's almost like that first quarter is always a little wonky because you have so many of those one-off
One-time payments.
invoices that are just so large. The same thing's gonna be with like emergency management. They kind of go through and say, okay, these are all the exercises we're gonna wanna do. So then they kind of get their material list together and they make their purchases. We've got Parks and Recreation. I'm not gonna try to throw Howdy under the bus, but we bought a Christmas tree. We had certain things that we, of course, weren't expecting at the beginning of the fiscal year, but we have plenty of time in the remaining part of the year to make up that.
So did we buy the Christmas tree, or did we?
Well, it started
I
off.
mean, you're already under the bus,
No,
so.
it started off as a lease where they were gonna come set it up and then they were gonna come take it down and we didn't have to store it. And so at the end, when it was over, the company that did it was going out of business and they didn't want to come pick up the tree. So they sold it to us for a song.
They really did. They
And so if you look at the rental and the purchase, it was quite a bit less than what they offered it to us in the beginning to buy it at. So we own it, we've got it taken down, and so they came and helped us take it down and told us how to put it back together. But we now own the Christmas tree and it's in storage.
We should charge for tree lighting next
Yeah.
year.
It's a beautiful tree.
Well, don't forget that song. You may need to sing it again.
This is true.
But yes, there were some purchases done in the first quarter that we did not,
Anticipate in the first
Anticipate.
quarter. It's okay.
yeah, it's okay. We got plenty of time through the rest of the year
It'll come out in the wash.
for that.
On a quarterly basis, we'll know where we are.
Yeah.
I had to, Howdy, I'm sorry. Was that too?
Hey, I own it. It's all good.
Literally, you own it, literally.
Well, responsive, effective, and accountable. I own my work and we own this tree.
I do want to say about our revenue side, overall, on our revenue side, on the general fund, we are over budget. We're finishing at 26% right now, when we're 25% in. And our expenses are at 22% overall. So right now, you know, we're upside right. And so I think that that's really great. If you look at these summary things here, you know, every line item has about 5 things that kind of group into it. But if later on you feel like you would like to see something different or a little bit more detail on this or that, a little bit more detail on revenue, please just let me know, and I'm happy to oblige. Anything
Very
else?
nice, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Ms. Molly?
So, Mayor and Council, I provided you all with an election calendar. I know I sound like a broken record talking elections tonight, but it's kind of what I do. So, the filing period for the election, as we discussed when you all called the election, will take place beginning tomorrow, Wednesday, January 19th at 8 a.m. And it will go through 30 days through Friday, February 18th at 5 p.m. If any member of the public or existing council member is interested in filing to get your name on the ballot, this is the time period in which you can do it. Under no exceptions can you file for a place on the ballot after this deadline has passed. Or that goes for the mayoral election. If there's a special election, our timeline changes. So the last day to do that will be in our office on Friday, February 18th by 5 p.m. I don't recommend 4:59 p.m., but we'll fit you in up to 5 o'clock p.m. Candidate packets are available as of now in our city administration office. I meant to bring one with me to show you all, but we take a lot of pride and put a lot of work into putting together our candidate packets. We feel strongly that it's a reflection of our office and our city. So those are available for the public and for anyone interested in filing. This election calendar is a condensed, the Secretary of State provides us with a very thick election calendar, so we try to condense that down into a more digestible format, and we've provided the council with that information as well, so that if you all get questions, you're reading off the same calendar that we provide to candidates who apply for a place on the ballot. So a couple of dates that I want to point out is, as we mentioned, the filing period. The last day to file is Friday, February 18th. The last day to register to vote for an election is always 30 days prior to the election day. So the last day in which you can register to vote, if you're not already registered, is April 7th. After April 7th, if you are not registered to vote, you cannot vote in the May 7th election. A couple other days to vote is we'll host early voting as we do every year, beginning Monday, April 25th. That will start at 8 a.m. right here at City Hall, and we'll host early voting all the way through Tuesday, May 3rd. At 5 p.m. And then, of course, Election Day will take place 4 days following, wrapping up early voting on May 7th here at City Hall from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then we will canvass the results of those elections at the regular City Council meeting on May 17th. And if a runoff is necessary due to a candidate not receiving a majority of the votes, then we would hold the runoff election on Tuesday, May 24th.
If I may add a date to pencil in, February 22nd. We've talked through several different contingencies. Should the mayor file and be unopposed, if we only have one candidate for mayor, then we have the option to cancel that election. And so should we only have one candidate at the conclusion of the filing period, we would ask for a special city council meeting on February 22nd, in which we can cancel the election with as much advance notice as possible. So we will only call that meeting if at the conclusion of the filing period there's only one candidate for mayor.
And then finally, the daddy-daughter dance that is put on by the Northeast Texas Children's Museum will take place on February 5th. I believe that's a Saturday. Is that right, Becky? Saturday, February 5th. So if you've got a daughter and you're a daddy that's interested in taking her on a date, you can buy tickets in advance on the Northeast Texas Children's Museum website. And those are the only updates, calendar event updates that I have for you.
Moving on for personnel, we want to introduce our newest addition to the city team. Miss Jessica Abrams is our, well, it's like biblical. I always, Abram is Abraham, so I apologize. She's the new executive assistant in our office and has already proven to be incredibly valuable member of our team, and so we wanted to recognize her as joining our team.
Welcome.
Welcome.
And then for the project update, if you will indulge me just a moment. Each month, we walk through this chart that gives you kind of an updated status of the various projects that we have actively in front of us. But rather than walk through this list in every project, I want to take a few moments and talk about the animal shelter and the splash pad. Because the way we're delivering those projects is going to be a little different than what you may be familiar with. We're using a process called design build. And so most projects traditionally are done with what's called design bid build, in which you hire a team of engineers and architects and you design everything on paper. When you finish that process, then you bid it out and you award it to the low bid, and the low qualified bidder is the one that gets that work. We're doing a process called design build, and so for the animal shelter and the splash pad, bids and price proposals are due at the end of January. We're going to be conducting interviews with those companies, and it's my intention to bring those two projects to you in February. You will also have projects for the Ivory Moore improvements and the inclusive playground. So it's my intention in the February meeting to have at least 4 projects in front of you to award. But the price proposal for a design build project is different than what you traditionally see. And so if you'll allow me to, I want to talk you through what some of those differences are. I'm going to use the animal shelter job as the first example. The project budget for our animal shelter is $1.5 million. And in a traditional delivery process, we would go hire an architect and their team of designers. And we would go through probably a 6 to 9 month design process. You're typically going to pay 12 to 18% of your project budget is going to be spent on design services. And then at the end of that process, you bid it out and you just get a lump sum bid amount with very little visibility in what's included in those numbers. And you typically award to the lowest qualified bidder. So the components in a traditional project is going to be construction dollars. Keep all my markers together. Then there's some design dollars. And then what we are doing in the design build process that you're going to see next week is this component right here. So this is construction. This is design. And then what we are bidding out is not the total cost of the project. What you're going to see next week is overhead and profit percentage. So in a design build project, we're hiring the general contractor that's going to build this. And we're asking them up front, what is your profit percentage? What is your markup on this? And that's what they're bidding. And so you'll see usually 8%, 10%, whatever their markup is. That's what they're gonna have to bid. And so that tells us of our $1.5 million project, how much money is going in their pocket and is never going into the ground in our project. And so we get to see that number up front in terms of how profitable they want to be. And then we award based on best value. The best value consideration is both the price and the experience and the qualifications. So the bids that come in at the end of this month, part of the scoring will be based on their price, low bid getting the most points, and then points are given out based on how close or how far away they are to low bid. So low bid has an advantage, but they don't automatically get it because best value does not always mean lowest price. Because you can have someone that has more experience, more qualifications to build this type of facility that they cost a little bit more. But if their experience and their price is close to low bid, we have the option of awarding to the vendor that is the best value, not necessarily the low bid. So what you're going to see next month when we come before you is not a $1.5 million bid to build our animal shelter. They're gonna be bidding an overhead and profit percentage, and then we'll turn that into some dollar figure. And then when we do interviews and we score them out, you'll get to see everybody that submitted, what was their price, what was their experience and qualifications, and how we scored them out. And then you will get to decide as a council who we award that to. May be low bid, may not be low bid, but that's the recommendation we'll be bringing you tomorrow, next month. In a traditional project, you never get to see this overhead and profit percentage. They can bid it at $1.5 million, and then in construction, they can lowball all of the quality products and give you inferior products at an inferior schedule and line their pockets with profit, and you don't get to see that in a traditional method. We're asking upfront if they give us their profit margin, and we part of that consideration. And so for the animal shelter and the splash pad, this is the delivery method we'll be using. And so you're gonna see that next month, but you're not gonna see a traditional bid that is the total dollar amount.
So you said that bid packets have gone out?
Yep.
And do we know, how many may be bidding?
Yeah. And so in this process, we've had a couple of conversations about this as well. In a traditional project, the city hires the engineer and the architect, and they work for me. In the state of Texas, you cannot select professional services based on price. That's against the law. You have to select an engineer or an architect based on qualifications. And so you pick the most highly qualified firm, and then you negotiate the price. And if you can't agree on a reasonable price, whoever was the most qualified, you write them a letter, cut them loose. You pick the second most qualified, you start negotiating. So in this process, we cannot select a team based on the price of their design. So we're picking the most qualified, best value contractor based on their experience and qualifications and their price proposal for profit margin. And then we start negotiations. And so we will negotiate what the design cost is going to be. And so if we pick firm A, then we start negotiating prices, and if we can't agree, then we go to firm B. We just go down the line. But the first step is to put out requests for qualifications. And so for the animal shelter, we had 3 firms that submitted qualifications. We selected all 3 to go into the bid phase. For the splash pad, we had 7 firms submit qualifications. All 7 were good, solid firms. We picked the top 4. And so we've got 4 companies that are submitting price proposals for the splash pad. And so there's some very, very qualified firms that are looking for this work. And so it's our intention to bring you proposals and recommendations at the February council meeting. But I wanted an opportunity to kind of explain what you're going to be seeing so that you weren't seeing and hearing it for the first time in February. for the Ivory Moore and Inclusive Playgrounds. Those are playground improvements to those two parks. That design has already been completed. We took that design to the Parks Advisory Board this month. They approved that, they recommended those designs unanimously. But rather than try to rush it and bring it to you today, I'm going to try to line them all up so that you see all of it at one time. And so you'll see the playground improvements proposals next month as well. Be happy to answer any questions.
Would you talk to us a little bit about street improvement schedule?
You will notice that our design engineer, and again, street projects, you typically do in the traditional design bid build manner, and state law limits how you can procure public work projects, especially that are street or waterline improvements. So we've already selected the engineering team. They are in town. You'll see surveyors out up and down Washington Street starting to do some survey work. So they've begun design on the Washington Street project. And then I'm meeting with them this week and my Public Works team. We're going to be talking about underground utilities that are underneath Washington. There's a couple of sections of that street that we desperately need to replace, utilities that are under the ground. And so we're going to coordinate our time with the engineers so that we have an opportunity to dig up Washington Street and put new utilities under the ground before they put new asphalt on top of it. The schedule you have in front of you right now shows street construction beginning in late summer of 2022. A lot of that's going to depend on how much time we need to replace the underground utilities. You could potentially see construction starting in the spring of '23 if we need additional time to replace the underground utilities. So right now our schedule is trying to hit construction at the end of summer. You typically don't want to be pouring asphalt in the middle of winter. And so that schedule's a little bit in flux depending on how much underground work we've got to do. We have those conversations this week.
What about the maintenance streets, which is Monroe?
The
and-
crack seal on Monroe will happen this summer. That's easy. There's not any underground work we've got to do there. Hickory Street will happen this summer. And then the resurfacing of Park Street from Maple down to Culver where it crosses Oldridge, that will happen this summer because there's no utilities underneath those roads that we've got to replace.
Good. Have you anything else?
We talked a lot about the Motor Control Center at Lake Tawakoni in our last meeting. We have verbal confirmation that they extended our grant till the end of 2022. We haven't seen the actual document yet, but they've given us approval, and so bids are back out. We're trying to have bids due in February, so you should be seeing an award, knock on wood, for that project in the coming months as well. That concludes the update.
There is a need for an executive session. We'll be meeting under the law 551.071 and number 1 and 551.071 number 2 to discuss lien forgiveness. Under the section of law 551.074, we'll be discussing our city manager, and 551.087 Bloomfield Homes. Is there a motion related to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Let us, at exactly 7 o'clock, open, or retire to executive session.
How do you?
At 8:03, I call this council meeting back into regular session. We have a couple items to deal with. First of all, lien forgiveness. Have we a motion related to that?
I move that we approve the lien forgiveness of the interest only for the property listed.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Have we a motion related to the item on Bloomfield Homes?
I move that we approve the 3-8 agreement as written.
Second.
You figured that out?
Either one. It doesn't matter. Either one. Either one.
And can I say, does that motion include authorizing the manager to sign any
Well,
relevant
sure.
documents?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor,
And this-
say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you so much. It is now 8:04 PM, and I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Newly elected training, or the one that was in October. I'm headed down to San Antonio. Any